Alright,
Kind of just
guys. What's
silence my phone.
yeah? I got my phone going. Alright, guys. What's up? It's Kage, and welcome to episode one of Vantuber interviews. Name still work in progress. This is a new series. It's going to be a podcast style interview thing with different Vanguard YouTubers. And with me today, I got the infamous BlackMoonDragon, who needs more popularity than he already has. How's it going, Moon?
It's going. It's going. Just got back from work. Um, so yeah,
I
good to
know
be
that.
here.
I know that feeling. Except with college.
Yeah, yeah. I hear ya.
Well, I really do appreciate you coming on for this. Thank you.
Sure, sure.
All right, so since this is technically the first episode, I'm planning on just trying to wing it. I kind of have a general idea of how I want this to go. So the first segment I'm going to call this is the getting to know the guest. So, just a little small series of questions. First, how did you discover Vanguard? Was it, a friend group? Um, just stumbled upon it, got so sick of the card game you were playing, you needed something else, etc.,
Well,
etc.
so here's the thing. I've heard of it. Like, I was a big Yu-Gi-Oh player at the time, believe it or not, and I kind of heard of it, because when you're into one card game, you kind of hear about the others. I'd go to buy Yu-Gi-Oh cards, and I would see Vanguard booster boxes and trial decks, and I'd read Yu-Gi-Oh fan fiction, as cringy as that sounds, and I would see Vanguard come up a couple times, so I knew of its existence. And it's kind of funny because I was a bit of a snob back then, and I was kind of the mindset that the only trading card game out there is Yu-Gi-Oh, and everything else is just trying to copy it. And that's what I felt Vanguard was before I even gave it a chance. And funnily enough, one of the Yu-Gi-Oh fan fiction writers that I followed, who was really good at writing, I found out that he was a fan of Vanguard, and I couldn't believe it. I was like, dang, you're a big Yu-Gi-Oh fan fiction writer, and you like Vanguard? And I thought, okay, you know what? If he likes it, I'll try out the anime. I'll give it a shot. So I found the original first season on YouTube before it got region restricted, and I kind of liked it. I was like, okay, the show is better than I thought it would be. It wasn't a pure copy of Yu-Gi-Oh. It was different, and the thing was the anime kind of made it so that you could really keep up with the game, especially in like the original and the first few seasons. And I actually kind of got into it, and when I went into it, even when I started liking the Vanguard anime, I originally told myself that I wouldn't get into the game because I was already playing Yu-Gi-Oh, but I was finding it so interesting. I was like, okay, maybe I'll just build like one deck. So I tried it out one time, and I was like, you know what? Yu-Gi-Oh has kind of been falling off a cliff for me. The meta's out of control. It's too expensive. I'm gonna just switch over to Vanguard, and I'm sorry for such a long-winded response, but that is kind of the story of how I ended up coming into Vanguard.
Kind of funny how that works. We kind of have a similar way we got into it. I follow a Yugi tuber by the name of Cyberknight, and he does these big and collectible openings. And he got this mystery pack where it was like different booster packs, and it had like Buddy Fight, Y Schwartz, Vanguard, stuff like that.
Yeah,
And I'm like, what is this Vanguard? Because he really seems to like it. So I looked it up, and I'm like, oh, it's a card game. The first season I found was actually G. Yeah, that kind of explains my Gear Chronicle love, which we all know that
yeah,
is your
yeah.
favorite clan. And I will never let that joke go. But I ended up, getting into the game, and then I'm like, I'll never play outside of G/premium. Well, here I am with overdressed decks, V decks, premium decks, a dedicated
Yeah.
G deck. And actually, your channel was one of the first I found because when I was looking up how to build Vanguard decks, I didn't know what the hell a clan was. I'm like, what is a clan? So your video for the original how to start series is actually how I discovered your channel. Then from there I discovered, Solemn, Different Fight, GI Station, etc., etc.
I kind of find it funny because I'm really low on the totem pole when it comes to Vanguard tubers, especially now that my channel's pretty much dead. So the fact that I'm like one of the first ones you found, I always find that a little funny. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and honestly, you broke it down pretty well in that video. And that's back when I was stubborn, saying I'd only ever play Gear Chronicle, and now I have, oh man, I have like 20 different clans I play. Alright, the next question is how did you get started on your YouTube channel, and like what inspired you to actually start, doing YouTube instead of like writing blogs or trying to become an official Bushy Road employee who does, the Vanguard reveals and news discussions?
Um. Oh gosh. Well, actually, the funny thing is, I actually do kind of want to experiment with writing blogs. Maybe not for Vanguard per se, but how I became a YouTuber. Working for companies, never really appealed to me. Truth be told, I really, 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 don't like having to take orders. Which is funny because that's kind of what I do now. But I kind of like to answer to myself. If I could have my own way, that's what I would do. But with YouTube, I wanted to do a gaming channel, believe it or not. It wasn't supposed to be a TCG channel. And I started out playing mostly Minecraft, and if there were any other uh, games that I could play on my crappy computer at the time, I would. And then one day, I guess after I first got into Vanguard, learned about it some more, I did a video just for fun on how to build a gold paladin deck on a budget that, is still viable. And my Minecraft videos were getting like 20 views or less per, and that video got over 200 views overnight, so it kind of took over the channel, and I just did more Vanguard content at the time. And at the time, I was having more fun with it. I enjoyed doing the deck profiles and the theory videos and all that. So that's more or less how I got into it.
Still waiting on part two for that fan fiction you did.
Oh, yes. Yeah, I'm the worst procrastinator in the world, I could send you the link to the fan fiction if you'd like. I do have several chapters posted already.
Yeah, I figured I had to bring that up because the first part you posted was actually pretty awesome.
I appreciate it. Believe it or not, more than YouTube, I actually want to be a fiction writer professionally. I hope that works out well.
Yeah, I really want to. It's kind of funny. I never posted a video how I got started on YouTube. It was actually kind of funny as I used to watch a bunch of random videos, and there was this video about dangerous water slides, believe it or not. And this guy was doing a giveaway for, tripods and, cameras that were, pretty expensive for 15-year-old me who didn't have an income except for birthday and Christmas money. And I'm like, you know what? I can start YouTube. All I just need is a phone. And I just did random videos. I did fidget cubes, Hesh trucks. Who actually remembers Hesh trucks though? Um, Beyblades, you name it. And then Kappa, kicked in fully because of whatever reason that was. YouTube being YouTube. So I essentially deleted my old videos and I posted a 2 trial deck Messiah deck profile for premium, and that got like a I don't even remember how many views that got. It got over, I think, 150 in like 2 days. So I fully dedicated my channel to Vanguard and some Yu-Gi-Oh here and there.
Yeah, yeah.
It's kind of amazing, how all that starts. Now the big question. Where specifically did you start in the Vanguard timeline? Was it the original Break Ride, Legion, Limit Break, G, V, Overdress?
Um, so here's the thing. At the time I started, G was going on. I want to say they were in like their third season. What was that? It wasn't
Stride?
Gears Crisis, was it?
I think that was Stride Gate. If I remember, it went original
Yeah, it was
Gears.
Stridegate. That was what was going on at the time. But I don't like to start series, like midway through, even if that's what's current. Um, so I started from the very first uh um I started from the very first season of the original, and I just binged like crazy until I was caught up. So I hope that answers your question.
So you got your start in G. So what was the very first deck you actually built, not just like bought a trial deck, that you actually took time to actually try to plan out and build?
Let's see. Well, I bought this guy's Gold Paladin Gurguit deck, and I modified it a little where I could. And, that kind of got me started. Afterwards, I don't know which one. I don't remember which one I fully built from scratch, but I know some of the ones that I did, build out. Okay, actually, I think I might. No, actually, I did build like the Dragonic Blade Master Cohen Blaze deck pretty early on, and I had a lot of fun with that. It was a kind of an aggressive build, where I would nuke the field and then run a ton of stand triggers to restand my heavy hitters.
Yeah, I think for me, once I finally got over the I'm only playing premium, the first true deck I actually built was a very crappy V Series Shadow Paladin deck that revolved around riding the Dark Dictator. It was like a 12 crit deck that I don't even know how I even won games.
Sometimes straightforward stuff works.
Yeah, it was very. This is when I was learning deck building. This is when I was learning deck building in general, because I understood the Yu Gi Oh deck building, but Vanguard deck building was something I was beginning to learn. Because I knew you needed 16 criticals, a starter, and then you had to then, different decks ratio differently. So I basically did the best I could, and we just kept going from there. And then I started building better decks.
Yeah, if I could comment on it,
I give me.
say before the cutoff, I was gonna say that when it comes to deck building in Vanguard, I actually think it's kind of streamlined a bit more, so that it's actually a little easier to do than Yu-Gi-Oh. Cause with Vanguard, it's like, okay, you need a starting Vanguard, you need 16 trigger units, and then you need like a certain number of like grade ones, twos, threes, maybe fours, depending on what kind of deck you're running. And like the ratio, of course, will vary depending on what deck you're running, especially in overdress format where the ride deck makes it possible to have more leeway on the ratios.
Yeah,
But that's just me.
personally for me, I like overdress. Some of the decks are definitely unique, especially the Morikawa deck. I mean Bastion.
Yeah.
That I've seen a joke where somebody said the Bastion deck is an alternate timeline where Morikawa worked at Bushy Road, which is definitely true. But if I want to be honest, I'm kind of mixed on overdress. I like it because it's definitely unique. It's a different spin, but at the same time, there are certain aspects of it I really don't like. For example, I'm mixed on the ride deck because I feel like it takes some deck building strategy away. Like, for example, in V era, if you built your deck wrong, you would have to, G assist a lot. In overdress, you're just guaranteed the ride, so you can run, one grade two, 50 grade ones, and how like zero grade threes and call it a day.
I'm
Whereas,
gonna have to. Oh, keep going.
whereas in V, you had to mess around with ratios to figure out, okay, I want to see, for example, I'm just going to use this because this was one of my favorite decks of the V era, Luard. Okay, I want to see Luard and Leafall in my hand. So how many nieces do I need? Or how many, or like with Yasue, how many Takahimes do I want to see on board? And you had a ratio around that. In overdress, you're just guaranteed the ride.
I'm gonna have to respectfully disagree with that. I actually would argue that in a way that the ride deck allows for more strategies because one, it kind of allows people to play the game a bit more because it's not fun getting grade locked, and like the idea behind the ride deck was to get rid of, grade locking altogether so that you can just focus on the game itself. And I think it actually kind of allows for more versatility. Like, you can play with the grade ratios a little more, and you can run more cards based on skill and ability rather than I need to fill a quota for X number of grades to increase my odds of not getting grade locked. Or alternatively, and I don't know how to explain this, it eliminates the need for certain types of units that people used to throw in, like grade 3 searchers. Like, there was a time in, I want to say, both the G era and the V series, maybe, where you had to run like a certain number of grade 3 searchers to ensure that you got your main ride to your hand. And I think by eliminating the need for that kind of stuff, it opens the possibility to running other stuff and focus on other playing styles and strategies rather than fulfilling some type of card quota, if that makes sense.
Right. I personally, I think my whole thing is just, I feel like, so I forget what video I was watching and I forget the name of the channel. Watch, it's going to come to me later. But trading card games are a combination of luck and skill. So, like, deck building is part of that skill where
Yeah.
if you don't, where, you need to improve it over time. We don't, we're not all just going to wake up one day and discover we're master, guitarists, or all of a sudden we can cook, Chef Ramsay style meals. We need to, you need to put time into it. But I do agree with what you're saying, though, that you can mess around with more strategies. For Bastion, for example, that's a deck that would never have worked outside of Overdress because you run all grade 3s minus your triggers and PGs.
And the one grade 1 and 2 for your
Right,
ride deck.
right. But aside from that, all your cards are grade 3, so that would have never
Yeah.
worked. I don't know. I kind of like the skill challenge of deck building, but I also got to agree with what you're saying. It's just, I kind of like to have a little bit of extra skill and challenge.
I understand.
So, now, actually, while we're on the topic of overdress, what would you say is your favorite overdress, deck out of the, I don't even remember how many we have now.
So far, the out of all the ones I've played, I think Orphist is my favorite. Um, Aside from the fact that it kind of, has the Star Vader aesthetic, and because remember I was a big Star Vader player, even though Orphist plays nothing like it, I like its play style. It kind of gives me Shadow Paladin vibes play style wise, but with tokens instead of, you know, your rear guards. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah, so it's kind of weird. It's like it's got the aesthetic of Link Joker's Star Vaders with the play style kind of Shadow Paladins, and I've been having a lot of fun with it when I've played it. Um, I'd like to pick up some other stuff though. Once Chakrabarthi gets its grade 4, I might experiment with that a little. Um, I also kind of like the Aurora Battle Sisters, for control. But yeah, I still need to play around with some of the other decks.
Yeah, personally in Overdress, even though it's not that good of a deck, I actually like Phantom Blaster. I think partly because I couldn't get it in the V series. But out of all the decks I've played, Orphist is definitely one of my favorites, and Bruce.
Bruce is pretty good.
Yeah, my personal playstyle has always been beatdown, and Bruce basically does that.
It does that in spades, yeah.
And I had somebody ask me, well, why not play Bastion then? I don't. I like Bastion. I own the trial deck. It's fun, but my problem is you never have enough guard. And because, think of, like I said, you're only running, 16 triggers and 4 PGs. If you get a hand of nothing after your mulligan, if you have nothing but grade 3s, essentially you can't do anything. And there is no um Bastion, I almost called him Bruce. Bastion card that says grade 3s get shield. If they had a card like what's that
There
what's that dimension
there are
police card?
actually but I'm sorry to interrupt you, but there actually, I believe, are some grade 3s for Keter Sanctuary that do gain shield, and I want to say that there's also some order cards that you can play that will grant your Bastion more power when it gets attacked or something. And I think what people do is that they run those, to kind of offset the lack of shield power.
Right. I know me and my friends have talked about this, but what I think Bastion needs is a card like, oh, what's the name of it? The Dimension Police card that says all your grade 3s get a 5k shield. It's not Die Kaiser. It's this is gonna drive me nuts. But you know which one I'm talking about, right?
Vaguely. Another alternative is to have like a super aggro build, kind of like what Nova Grapplers used to do, where they would aggro so much that they would win the game early so that it wouldn't become an issue.
Right.
That's another way to go about it.
Yeah, I've played Bastion both. I've played Bastion and Bruce. As much as I love both decks, I definitely kind of like Bruce a little more. Not only because it kind of reminds me of Spike Brothers, even though I've never owned a deck, I actually did go to locals once and some guy let me pilot Spike Brothers, and they were a fun deck.
Yeah, I don't play with them much myself, but yeah, I can understand how their play style would be appealing.
And then for the V series, what would you say your favorite deck was in V?
Oh gosh. It's funny because my play style in V was so different than G. Like in G, I was a big control player, but hmm, I really loved God Hand when that was a thing. I enjoyed playing that. Um, I enjoyed playing Royal Paladins, but then again, I always liked Royal Paladins. I guess, let's see. Currently, I am playing Thing Saver IRL. I'm gonna pick Chaos Breaker back up now that it's got more support, enough to build its own deck now. Um, what else is there? I played Gridora for a while in V.
Oh, I have
I
nightmares with
feel.
Redora.
Oh, when it comes out. Oh, let's see. For Gold Paladins, I'm gonna pick up, the Bluish Flames, of course. I already got that stuff set aside. I just need more support. When it comes out, I'm going to build like a straight up Raging Form for Shadow Paladin decks. And for sure, and this might even become my favorite deck depending on how it works out, but for sure, I think I'm going to try out Blazing Flare Dragon for Kagero because I've always wanted to build a deck around it, but it was obsolete by the time I got into the game, and it never really got any good, like, upgraded forms outside of the GB8 during the G era. So now that I finally have the opportunity to build a deck around it, that might become my main deck for a while.
For V, when I came into the V series, I said I was going to leave Gear Chronicle in G. Kind of a hint. The G era Gear Chronicle is definitely my favorite, but we'll get to that eventually. For the V series, I've played a lot of decks. I really enjoyed NoCL. NoCL was definitely an interesting deck. Just being able to manipulate the damage zone and being able to mess around with it. Um, Luard, definitely my go-to deck. Partly because I've always wanted a Luard deck, and Luard has always been crazy expensive, and I kind of got a good
Yeah,
deal on it.
it was like I think it was one of the most expensive decks back in the G era.
Um, Majesty Lord, I actually really enjoy.
Oh, that's a fun deck. It really is.
Yeah,
I actually still have mine right now.
I actually managed to buy the deck off of a buddy of mine. Not complete, but he sold me a MLB. He called it a split. Basically, he gave me the deck, but he didn't give me like the triple rares or the SVRs. He gave me the base rarity for like $30, which was a good deal, so I took it. And with, two minor upgrades, Majesty Lord I was competing with some of the better decks at the time.
Yeah.
Actually, one that probably the one I actually enjoyed the most was Seven Seas, even though it wasn't that good. I have
Seven
Night
C.
I have Night Rose now, but my original Grand Blue deck was Seven Seas.
Okay.
It was it was definitely a fun deck, and being able to have the option to do six, seven, yeah, like 11 attacks. But the problem is, your opponent would never let you get to six treasure markers. But it was
Yeah.
definitely an interesting concept because you had a lot of options. In my opinion, toward the end, a lot of the decks just became the same things. Like with Lulard, it was always, spam out grade ones because so a lot of people ran Lilith or Lilith, whichever one is called, where it gets plus 15 if you have all grade one rear guards. Just stack the force on that, and you're swinging for like 120,000 like turn 4 if you didn't already kill your opponent. Night Rose was always, attack with the rear guards, swing with Van, then call out 2 Skull Dragons with Columbard. Gurgit was just, well, what Gurgit did. 7Cs, you had options to play around.
Yeah, that's understandable.
And then for the G era, what would you say your favorite deck was in the G era?
G era? Oh, that's let's see. G era. I have a couple that I really liked. My all-time favorite was Chaos Breaker Dragon. But I also really liked Dragonic Vanquisher Sparking. It was easily like a close second favorite. So yeah, it was between one of those two for the G era.
For me, the top one is to, nobody's surprised, call the news press. Time Leap / Zodiac Time Beast is definitely my top for G. I know, what a shocker. Second place is actually Messiah. I actually am working on building a full G era Messiah deck. And I really enjoy the style of it. Because it's multi-attack, but it's also control. Because, you can basically lock down your opponent, especially if they're playing a deck that, rushes down like Spike Brothers, for example, or whatever decks would have a lot of rear guards out. Just, lock your front, lock lock 2 your back, lock your Vanguard back row, lock something else, only leave them 1 rear guard open in the back, and then all they can do is swing Van, and that's it.
Yeah,
and
I hear ya.
A third one that I never thought I would play is Overlord. Specifically the Legend. I know the X and the End were a lot better, but I kind of like the Legend play. It's a lot, in my opinion, it's a different take on Overlord. Because Overlord was always retire rear guards, restand the Vanguard. Oh, the Legend does that, but it can also, if your opponent somehow manages to stride lock you, you can play around that by just using the Legend skill, and you essentially...
It's kind of like striding without striding.
Right. And personally, that's a really fun deck, too. So yeah. I remember when I said I would only ever play Time Leap or whatever Gear Chronicle deck I was playing. And ultimately, well, we see how that turned out. Because you never just build one deck. I told myself I was only ever going to build one Vanguard deck. And here I am with like 30.
Yeah, it's always like that. You always say just one, and then it's never just one.
Yeah, just one with a few zeros added on the end.
Yeah, it's always like that.
Exactly. And that's for anything. You say, I'm only going to have 1 piece of chocolate. 20 pieces of chocolate later, I think I need to stop.
Yeah, I have a sugar problem, so I can relate.
Wait, you have one of those too? Oh, gee,
yeah,
I think that's called...
if you put a jar of jelly beans in front of me, I will go through like half the bowl in a very short period of time.
Only half. I could do the whole bowl in like probably 2 minutes. But alright, no. Now, this one is. I personally use like Dragon Shield for the sleeves and deck boxes and mats. I kind of use whatever. But what is your favorite gear to use in terms of sleeves, over sleeves, mats, deck boxes, etc.?
Oh, well, for deck boxes, I usually go with Ultra Pro. Um, for sleeves, it depends. Um, if I really, really, sometimes I'll get a sleeve like with the character that plays the clan or whatever. Um, or sometimes I'll get something like I'll do a design and get some custom made, maybe I want some waifu sleeves or something. So yeah.
Yeah,
Uh,
for. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
no, I'm done.
All right, for me personally, like I said, I use Dragon Shield mainly for my sleeves. Because and I like the art sleeves. Is what I'll do is I'll sleeve them in those, and then I'll use their over sleeves that they just released recently, which I'm so happy Dragon Shield finally did Japanese size over sleeves.
Yeah.
And actually, funny enough, I learned about them from somebody in one of the discords I'm in. I'm like, are you serious? They're finally making these because I was using Dragon Shield clear matte standard size before. For
Yeah.
deck boxes, I don't have a specific loyalty. I use Ultimate Guard, I use Ultra Pro, I use Game Genic. I have some official Konami deck boxes for some of my decks. I have an off brand called Totem, which are kind of like the Ultra Pro plastic deck boxes you can buy for like $2.
Yeah.
All right, then for the final part of this, I'm just curious if Bushy Road were to contact you tomorrow or today, whatever, I don't know if they'd be in the office because you're an hour behind me, and it's
Yeah.
almost 6:30 my time. So if Bushy Road were to ever contact you tomorrow and say, "Hey Moon, we need, a player's opinion on this. What do you think we could change about the game? What would you personally change for the better of Vanguard?"
Oh gosh, I don't know how to answer that. Um, hmm. I never really thought about this. Well, the thing is, I like a lot of aesthetic stuff, like artwork and stuff, but that I think focusing on the gameplay is more important, so I'll refrain from commenting on that.
Put SPs in trial decks.
Let's see. I don't know, just maybe making the game more accessible. And I think they've been doing a better job of that as of late. But I do think that we're in the year 2022 now, and this is the age of tech and stuff, and they really need their own card emulator. Like Yu-Gi-Oh's got one now. I think Magic's got one. And, Vanguard was going to get one in the form of Card Fight Online, and that, went south because not everyone likes doing remote plays, and not everyone likes to mess around with Card Fight area. So I think if they released their own, um, like card emulator so that people could play with each other and stuff, like from the comfort of their home. I think that that could also potentially help um, expand the game to a wider audience, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I gotta agree. I mean, it took Konami years to give us an official emulator that wasn't around Yugi and Kaiba, which I've been talking to some people about that, and honestly, I'm tired of Konami with this nostalgia thing they've been doing. I get it. Yugi and Kaiba, Dark Magician and Blue Eyes are the face of Yu-Gi-Oh! Vanguard will always have, Blaster Blade and Overlord. Pokemon will always have, Pikachu and Charizard. Digimon will always have, I think it's Greymon. Is it Greymon? I never really got into Digimon, so I'm not 100% sure. But, Konami, every game Konami has ever done has always been around, Yugi and Kaiba and the original story. We never got just an emulator like we have now with Master Duel.
Yeah.
Bushiroad needs to do something like that, which they did. They did
But then
do
they canceled it.
yeah, they did do Vanguard Zero, which is fun, but it's not
It's not the Vanguard that we know.
right, which if somebody
It's like Vanguard Light, if that makes sense.
yeah, it's like the grade threes are triggers, which funny enough we now have. But
Yeah.
I mean, it's a good way to teach somebody the game, but the problem is it's not exactly how to play. Somebody could come over to Vanguard and think, oh, okay, wait, where are the wait, why are grade threes only heals? Where are your stand and your critical grade threes? Yeah, sorry, little Timmy, but that's not how the game works. And then they have to learn all this other stuff, and it's like,
You don't have to intercept. You can guard from hand. You can
right.
attack rear guards, or you can choose not to attack at all. Well, actually, I think you can opt not to attack in Zero as well, but drive checks go to your hand instead of
The bottom of
the
the
bottom
deck.
of your deck, or trigger checks go to your hand instead of your drop zone.
Yeah, I mean, I played it. It's interesting, but yeah, Bushiroad really needs to release, something
That actually lets you play
right
Vanguard online.
that isn't untap or card fight area, which, not to mention, card fight area is a pain to download because you need a whole nother software or something just to run it.
If you're on Mac, yeah.
And, not every, and plus, card fight area has its own set of problems.
Yeah, the controls can be a little hard to learn from time to time, or every now and then there will be a bug, and you have to wait till it gets sorted out. But yeah, I mean, I like hard fight area, but
I mainly use Untap just because I mean, it's not the best, but it does what I need it to do. I use that for my deck testing before I actually build something. But anyway, that is it for the VanTuber interview episode 1. I hope you guys have enjoyed. Thank you again, Moon, for, taking the time out of your busy day to do this, and again, I really do appreciate it.
sure, no problem. Good to speak with you again.
Alright, and until the next time, I will catch you guys later. See ya.